Proklamasi. Kami, bangsa Indonesia, dengan ini menyatakan kemerdekaan Indonesia.
Indonesia, a sprawling archipelago nation once known as the Dutch East Indies, a land of vibrant cultures, abundant natural resources, and a history forged in the crucible of colonialism and revolution. For over 3 centuries, this vast territory was subjected to the exploitative rule of the Netherlands. But beneath the surface of imposed order, a powerful current of resistance was brewing, a yearning for self-determination that would ultimately reshape the course of history. This is the story of Indonesia's long and arduous journey to independence, a testament to the enduring spirit of a people determined to reclaim their destiny. Indonesia's road to independence, centuries of struggle. Our story begins with the arrival of the Dutch East India Company, Verenigde Oost-Indische Compagnie, or VOC, in 1602. This powerful entity wasn't just about trade. It was a state within a company, possessing the authority to build fortresses, sign treaties, and even wage war. Their primary obsession, the incredibly lucrative spice trade of the Indonesian archipelago, particularly nutmeg, cloves, and mace, which were worth their weight in gold back in Europe. To secure their monopoly, the VOC employed ruthless tactics, often disregarding the well-being of the local populations. They established trading posts and gradually exerted control over key spice-producing regions. This early period laid the foundation for a long and often exploitative relationship between the Netherlands and the islands that would eventually become Indonesia. By the end of the 18th century, the VOC, plagued by corruption and mismanagement, finally collapsed. In 1799, the Dutch government took direct control of its vast territories. This shift didn't necessarily mean a change for the better for the Indonesian people. The focus remained firmly on economic exploitation. In 1830, the infamous cultuurstelsel, or cultivation system, was formally introduced. This system forced Javanese farmers to dedicate a significant portion of their land and labor to cultivating cash crops like sugar, coffee, and indigo for the Dutch government. These crops were then sold on the international market, generating immense profits for the Netherlands. However, for the Javanese farmers, this often meant neglecting their own food crops, leading to widespread food shortages and even famine in regions like Cirebon and Central Java. The human cost of this system was immense, with forced labor and the prioritization of export crops over basic sustenance, leaving many impoverished and in debt. While some argue that the infrastructure built to support this system had unintended long-term benefits, the primary driver was the relentless extraction of wealth and labor. The early 20th century witnessed a crucial turning point, the emergence of organized Indonesian nationalism. The founding of Budi Utomo in 1908 is widely regarded as the spark of this Indonesian national awakening. Initially focused on cultural and educational advancement, it marked the beginning of a unified national consciousness that transcended regional and ethnic divides. Following Budi Utomo, a wave of nationalist organizations emerged, each with its own goals and strategies. Sarekat Islam, founded in 1912, became a mass movement advocating for greater political influence and self-government, fueled by anti-capitalist sentiments arising from the exploitative Dutch economic policies. The Indische Partaij, though short-lived, boldly called for complete independence. In the 1920s, the Partai Nasional Indonesia, AFNEI, led by the charismatic Sukarno, became a central force, championing non-cooperation with the Dutch and demanding full independence. Key figures like Sukarno, Muhammad Hatta, and Sultan Syahrir, often educated in the West, skillfully utilized modern political ideas to challenge the very foundations of Dutch colonial rule. The Dutch responded with increasing repression, arresting and exiling nationalist leaders. However, this only served to further galvanize the movement. Even moderate attempts at reform, like the Petition of 1936 and the formation of GAPI demanding a more powerful Volksraad, were rejected by the Dutch, solidifying the belief that only full independence would suffice. Education played a vital role in this awakening, creating an educated elite who could articulate and organize the growing nationalist sentiment. The outbreak of World War II and the subsequent Japanese invasion in March 1942 dramatically altered the landscape. The swift defeat of the Dutch shattered the myth of European invincibility and provided a significant boost to Indonesian nationalist aspirations. Initially, some Indonesians welcomed the Japanese, hoping for an end to the discriminatory Dutch colonial system and embracing the Asia for Asians rhetoric. However, the reality of Japanese occupation was brutal. Resources were ruthlessly exploited to fuel Japan's war efforts, and forced labor known as Romusha led to immense suffering and a devastating famine that claimed millions of lives. Despite the hardships, the Japanese occupation inadvertently fueled the independence movement in several ways. In 1943, the Japanese formed the Pembela Tanah Air, or PETA, a volunteer army composed of Indonesians, providing them with crucial military training and experience. As the war turned against them, the Japanese, seeking support, promised Indonesia independence in 1944. They even established the Badan Penyelidik Usaha-Usaha Persiapan Kemerdekaan Indonesia, or BPUPKI, to prepare for this transition. It was during this time that Sukarno introduced Pancasila, the 5 principles that would become the philosophical foundation of the independent Indonesian state, aiming to unify the diverse population. The Japanese also promoted Bahasa Indonesia as the unifying language. When Japan surrendered unconditionally in August 1945 after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a crucial power vacuum emerged, presenting Indonesian nationalists with a golden opportunity. On August 16, 1945, under pressure from radical youth, Sukarno and Hatta were urged to seize the moment. The following day, August 17, 1945, they boldly proclaimed Indonesia's independence.
Proklamasi. Kami, bangsa Indonesia, dengan ini menyatakan kemerdekaan Indonesia. Hal-hal yang mengenai pemindahan kekuasaan dan lain-lain diselenggarakan dengan cara saksama dan dalam tempo yang sesingkat-singkatnya. Jakarta, 17 Agustus 1945, atas nama bangsa Indonesia, Sukarno, Hatta.
This act, however, was not the end of the struggle, but rather the beginning of a fierce national revolution. The returning Dutch, backed by Allied forces, were determined to re-establish their colonial control. This ignited a brutal conflict. The newly formed Indonesian Republic faced immense challenges. The Badan Keamanan Rakyat, BKR, later evolving into the Tentara Nasional Indonesia, TNI, was formed to defend the fledgling nation. Early battles, such as those in Tanjung Priok and the heroic Battle of Surabaya, where Indonesians fought fiercely despite heavy losses, demonstrated their unwavering commitment to independence. Diplomatic negotiations, including the Linggadjati and Renville Agreements, offered temporary respites, but ultimately failed to resolve the fundamental conflict. The Dutch launched two major military aggressions in 1947 and 1948, even capturing the Republican capital of Yogyakarta. However, Indonesian resistance, exemplified by the general offensive in Yogyakarta and growing international condemnation of Dutch actions, particularly from the United Nations and the United States, began to shift the balance. The threat of the US cutting off martial aid proved particularly influential. Finally, the Roem-Van Roijen Agreement in 1949 paved the way for a more lasting resolution. The culmination of the struggle came with the Round Table Conference in The Hague from August to November 1949. On December 27, 1949, the Netherlands formally recognized Indonesian sovereignty. However, the newly independent nation was initially structured as a federal state, the Republic of the United States of Indonesia, or RIS. This federal structure was a compromise, but the desire for a unified nation was strong. After a period of political maneuvering, on August 17, 1950, Indonesia officially returned to a unitary state, the Republic of Indonesia, marking the final chapter in its long and arduous journey to independence. The Indonesian struggle for independence, spanning nearly 350 years of colonial influence, a brutal occupation, and a hard-fought revolution, stands as a testament to the enduring human desire for freedom and self-determination. The sacrifices made and the resilience shown by the Indonesian people during this period laid the foundation for the vibrant and diverse nation that Indonesia is today. Thank you for joining us on this historical exploration. If you found this video informative, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who might be interested. Let us know in the comments below what other historical events you'd like us to delve into. Until next time,